Welcome to 10 Minutes On, a podcast from the Joint Public Issues team.
My name's Sienna, and I'm a Joint Public Issues team intern.
And I'm Annie, I'm the other JPIT intern. And today we're going to be talking about why we vote, and we'll be looking at the history of suffrage in the UK.
So, Annie, to start off our conversation, why do you vote? And in particular, why are you going to be voting in this general election?
I guess I've never really thought about why I vote. I don't think I've ever considered not voting, to be honest. I was brought up in a home where we openly talked about politics and lots of justice issues. So I was aware of political issues from quite a young age, even if I didn't really realize they were politics. And I think that probably informs why and how I vote. Being aware of or angry about injustices and lots of issues in the world and our country motivates me to vote because that's the way we can all help and bring change and tell those who hold the power to change things and what we want to see. But Sienna, you've been working for an MP, so you clearly care a lot about politics. You also wrote a piece on women's suffrage, which was an insider perspective from Parliament. Can you say a bit more about this? How does this shape why you vote and your engagement with politics? And why are you going to be voting in this election?
Yeah, so I'll start in Parliament. In Parliament, I've been really struck by how history is just around you in the fabric of the building. From Westminster Hall, where supposedly they found tennis balls that King Henry VIII used to play tennis with, to the cupboard where one of the suffragettes, Emily Davison, hid herself. When you look at history and when you dig into parliamentary history and when you dig into the building itself, you can see the way that how women have for centuries been excluded from politics. And this only changed because of the hard work of women and men who fought, went to prison, marched for the right to vote. And so when I have been working in Parliament this year, I've become so much more aware of and grateful for the fact that I am able to vote. And actually, I think I've taken it for granted, and I don't want to do that anymore. But the reason that I'm engaged in politics, and also the reason working in politics for an MP, working for JPIT, and also the reason why I vote is because I, similarly to you, Annie, really just feel like when I look at the world, there are so many hugely pressing issues, from climate change to fast fashion to conflicts around the world. The reality is that there is so much need for action, and politics is one way in which this can be done. And often women are doubly impacted by these big issues, these really important issues. And they're also often some of the voices who are excluded. And so I'm going to be voting to remember the hard work and sacrifice of the people who have fought for my right to vote. And also because voting is a way that I can voice my concerns. I can vote for a direction that I want this world, the UK, to move in. And because it's one way, but not the only way, that I am choosing to get involved in politics. As a follower of Jesus, I also see ways in which he just really, I guess, platformed the voices of women, or included women in a way that was just completely radical for his time. And we kind of lose that because we don't see the context now. But I just really think that both from a faith perspective, from my lived experience, and from history, there are so many compelling reasons as to why we vote. So that's a little bit of me. What are your thoughts on the intersection of gender and politics?
Yeah, I think gender and politics are so intrinsically linked, as are all forms of discrimination and marginalization. And I think that's important to lots of women, is thinking about the fight for women's suffrage in the UK, like you said, and it really wasn't very long ago, and thinking about what those women gave up and how they campaigned and suffered. And it really makes me feel privileged about being able to vote and to feel a duty to vote when I can. It's also really important to think about the huge amount of gender inequality and violence against women in the UK and across the world, with the gender pay gap still privileging men and the huge underrepresentation of women in politics and top level jobs. So yeah, I think it's really easy to get complacent by comparing our situation in the UK to that of other countries where being a woman is much more dangerous, and thinking how easy and great we have it here. And yes, we do enjoy more freedom than many other women, but there's still such a long way to go until we have true gender equality. So I think voting is such an important way that we can acknowledge that.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's just crazy that we still in the UK, well, as of April 2022, among full-time employees, the gender pay gap was still 8.3%, and that there are just so many issues that women are facing. I think I think my eyes have been opened in recent years through experience with people close to me around how many women are impacted by sexual violence, and like was really astonished to learn that a woman is killed on estimate by a man every 3 days in the UK, and that 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence. And as you say, women are dramatically like underrepresented in politics still. Yes, we've had some female prime ministers, but actually the reality is politics is still a male dominated space. And in order for us to move forward and make progress on women, quote unquote, women's issues, we we need women to be there and to be able to speak and to get those like issues towards the top of the agenda. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So we're both clearly going to vote, and we're part of an age range that is statistically less likely to vote, and generally lots of people are feeling apathetic about voting. We heard from Maya in the first episode of this little series, who very compellingly told us earlier in the week about her opinion. What do you have to say to people who feel frustrated about politics?
I think I'd begin by saying yes, it is frustrating, and it can be frustrating, and the state of British politics is not glowing. I don't know if any time in, although to be fair, I don't know if this is that unique, and I imagine that in every single time there's been an election, it's felt like politics could be in a better position. But the reality is that nothing has ever changed because a bunch of people have sat in a room complaining to their friends and family. Things have only changed by people going out and doing things and being part of the solution by acting. And so my encouragement would be use your frustration. If you have anger, like anger can be a productive force. Yes, it can also be like a really destructive force, but I do think like anger and frustration or sadness and can be a real force for change and motivation to get out there and be part of a solution. And so I would say start by like get praying, pray for our political leaders, pray for our election, pray for our political parties, pray for our churches, pray for the political issues that you care about. Say get educated, like spend time learning about the different political parties, about what it like when the manifestos come out, read them, make sure like you are making an informed decision, but also get learning about the issues. Are there things that you can be pushing for? If there's a hustling, are there questions that you can ask your candidates? If there's Can you email your candidates in advance of the election to ask what their positions are? Because actually they're they have a really it's a really great opportunity to get people to listen. At the moment, they want to win your vote. And so getting issues on their agenda, it's a like just before and just after the election is a real opportunity to do that. And then I'd also say get involved. I definitely vote. I would obviously, Annie, you and I both think that voting is really important. But I would say like go out and vote. Maybe help people in your congregation or in your local community to register to vote, help them with getting voter ID if they don't have it. Also, think about in a broader sense, think about joining a party, think about going door knocking, be part of politics. Politics only changes when people are involved, and I just think it can be so easy to let our apathy stop us from action and let our frustration stop us from being part of the solution. And I know I keep banging on about it, but I really do think that politics changes when people do things. And there's that quote about the mosquito that if you think that you're too small to make a difference, remember, I'm paraphrasing, but have you ever been in a room with a mosquito? And I do think, if we can all be our little mosquitoes in our local areas, then we can make a big difference. So, Annie, what would you share with a first-time voter?
I think I would agree with all of what you just said. I would share exactly those things. Yeah, definitely do your research into all of the parties, talk to your candidates. I would also say try and have honest and open conversations with people you trust, not just those who you think hold similar opinions with you, which I personally find very hard. But yeah, talk to different people, people who you can have safe and honest conversations with, because you might learn different things and see things in different ways. And also just make sure you're registered. You've got until I think it's the 18th or 19th of June, 18th of June, I think, which is today, just over a week away, so it's not too long. And then make sure you register for postal or proxy vote in time if you need one. And then on polling day, just make sure you don't tick, cross the right box. Yeah. Do you want to add anything else?
I'd agree with all of that. I think the only thing that I would add is maybe if you're unsure about whether or not to vote, you want to vote for the person who has been your MP. Obviously candidates will make their views aware at hustings, etc., and also on their website and as they door knock and through flyers. But also do have a look at the voting record of your local MP. You can look at what they work for you is a good website for that. And also, if there are particular issues that you're not sure where the party stands on, yes, there are their manifestos, but also you can look at the party's voting record and also candidates' voting records on key pieces of legislation, because I actually think that while it can seem like there's not that much difference between the political parties, having worked in Parliament most of the time, or very frequently, the parties vote in very different directions because none of the main leaders have changed other than the SNP. And even then, the direction hasn't changed hugely. So it'll be a good kind of barometer for what it would look like under the next government.
That's great advice. Just a couple key bits of information. If you are wanting to get involved in the election, go across to our website, jpit.uk/elections. That's jpit.uk/elections. And you can find all our resources to help your church run a hustings. You can find our topical election briefings and a resource on how to run an election Sunday. Help your congregation register and learn all they need to get ready to vote. Don't forget to register before the 18th of June.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it around. Thank you so much for listening.